Your vote doesn't lose value in one day, it loses its value slowly when the boundaries are quietly redrawn. Hyderabad is back in the news, not because of flyovers or traffic, but because of the GHMC ward delimitation notification. The government has initiated the process of redrawing ward boundaries within the GHMC, and while it sounds technical, it directly affects how democracy functions at the local level. The real question is whether this is a routine governance or political engineering. Let's break it down clearly, legally, and without noise. What delimitation is simply means the redrawing of the boundaries of electoral wards. In the GHMC context, it determines how many wards exist, where each ward begins and ends, and how many residents are represented by one corporator. The purpose of delimitation, at least in the theory, is to ensure equal population representation, administrative efficiency. As cities expanded and the population shift, ward boundaries need adjustments to that one corporator does not represent 30,000 people while another represents 70,000. On paper, delimitation is a democratic necessity. Now, coming to the current GHMC delimitation notification, the government has issued a formal notification initiating the delimitation process. This is not the final redrawing of wards. This is the beginning of legally recognized procedure. Typically, this procedure includes preparation of draft, delimitation proposal, publication of draft, invitation of objections and suggestions from the public and stakeholders, considering of those objections, and finally the issuance of a final notification. This stage is critical because once the final notification is issued, the elections are conducted and the courts generally are reluctant to interfere. Legally, the power to carry out ward delimitation comes from the municipal laws of Telangana, the GHMC Act, and the constitutional framework governing urban local bodies under Article 243 of the Constitution. The Constitution mandates that urban local governance must be based on a democratic representation, and delimitation is meant to operationalize that mandate. However, courts have repeatedly held that while governments have the power to delimit wards, the power is not absolute. Delimitation cannot be arbitrary. It must be based on rational criteria such as population data. It must follow transparent process, and most importantly, it must not be exercised with malified intention. This is where controversies usually arise. One major concern is that population imbalance. If ward boundaries are redrawn without proper data or logic, some wards may end up heavily populated and while others remain disproportionately small. This directly affects the principle of equal representation. Another concern is that the timing. When delimitation exercises initiated close to elections, it naturally raises suspicion. Delimitation exercise close to the elections may undermine that democratic process. A third concern is that of political manipulation. By merging certain areas, splitting others, and altering traditional boundaries, electoral outcomes can be indirectly influenced. This practice, though legally disguised, is often described as gerrymandering. For the ordinary citizen, this is not an abstract of constitutional debate. What delimitation decides who your corporator is, how accessible your local representative becomes. And your vote remains one vote, but its influence depends heavily on the boundaries in which it falls. That boundary is what is being discussed right now. An important point many people miss is that citizens do have a legal right at this stage. During the notification and the objection period, residents, welfare associations, political parties, and stakeholders can file objections or suggestions. These representations becomes a part of the official record. If the final delimitation ignores the fundamental principles such as population equality or transparency, judicial review is possible. But once elections are held, legal remedies become extremely limited, and silence at this stage often means no remedy later. Delimitation itself is not the enemy. Every growing city requires periodic redrawing of administrative boundaries. The problem arises when the process lacks transparency, adequate public participation, or objective reasoning. Urban democracy does not collapse overnight. It erodes slowly when decisions affecting representations are taken away quietly and without scrutiny. So when you see this GHMC what delimitation notification, don't treat it as routine paperwork. It shapes the political geography of your city and for years to come. And the next time someone says the corporator does nothing, remember that sometimes the failure begins not with the person, but with the line drawn on the map. If you want clear explanations of legal development that directly affect everyday life, and tell me in the comments. And do you think the ward delimitation should be handled by an independent commission instead of the government of the day? Let me know in the comments.